Morning, everyone. Wanted to hop on here and do a recorded version of the Vision Quest podcast for this one because I may have to edit some of this because the statement I'm about to read to you is pretty, to me, infuriating, but not infuriating. But it's pretty ridiculous. So with that being said, there must have been a post, and I didn't see every single thing, and I don't really need to after reading this person's comment. There must have been a post that Corey Scanlon put out, and then this person commented on it, and then Corey laughed at them. And this person then put a comment, pretty long comment out that kind of puts club wrestling not in such a pretty sight. It's not that it's going to affect it. Trust me, this person's opinion is not going to affect the sport, but this person's way of thinking, they are not alone in it, and it's pretty cancerous. So I'm going to put the statement out in just a second here, but Corey Scanlon was replying to him about probably something ridiculous that he said. So this person replied to him laughing at him. So let's go ahead and put that out there. Get that over here. Okay. So this person's name is Scott Melsna. I know Melsna's, but they're not as dumb as this guy is. So Corey Scanlon was replying with an LOL to something. So his rebuttal was Corey Scanlon LOL with a bunch of question marks. Seriously, with a bunch of question marks. Maybe you haven't noticed the empty gyms, the dual meets that consist of 3 or 4 matches and 10 forfeits. Tournaments where over half of the spots are empty. Not a lot of people fired up to go watch 10-minute dual meets. Is it possible that not everyone wants to live and breathe wrestling? Yes, it is, and the numbers show it. Kids enjoyed it when it was a season, when they were all on the same level. You, club wrestling, are not doing high school wrestling any favors. You have created a very uneven playing field and sadly think you're doing the sport a favor. You're not. It's asinine to have kids that wrestle year-round and competing against kids who don't. You think that's fair? Maybe not every kid wants to wrestle year-round. Maybe not every family parent has the means to provide it. Maybe kids want to be kids. I'm going to let you in a little secret. There's more to life than wrestling. You have a few kids wrestling 24/7, 365, beat up on average kids. Does that make you better than them? Are you doing it for the kids or are you doing it for you? You have lost kids, lost fans, and lost interest in general. No, it's not LOL. It's sad emoji. Okay. Whew. Okay, so where do I start here? The top of it is pretty ridiculous. Maybe you haven't noticed the empty gyms. No, I haven't. Sorry. The only reason why I would have noticed empty gyms is simply because the team doesn't have as many kids. Maybe the demographic is small, where they don't have as many kids out for the sport, and they care about football, basketball, baseball. Happens in a lot of towns, especially in the state of Wisconsin. Oh, let's see what else. If you see me, like I said, if you see me looking somewhere over to the sides, I have notes here and there. And plus, I'm looking at what you guys are reading. So, but anyways, tournaments where over half of the spots are empty. Well, that happens at youth. Let's talk about different weight classes. Not every kid weighs the same. Not every kid is at the same weight. You know, not every kid has 500 kids at their weight class. Sometimes that happens. Again, demographics play a huge role in it and what sports the kids like. Certain towns just don't have wrestling teams. Look at Niagara, Florence. 2 teams combined. Is it because everybody hates wrestling? No. It's because there aren't enough kids that want to go out for it because they're out for other sports and they like the other sports. So they combine 2 schools, right? So it happens. Doesn't mean it's because clubs are destroying their school sports. Okay. Not a lot of people fired up to go watch 10-minute dual meets. Yeah, okay. Is it possible that not everyone wants to live and breathe wrestling? Yeah, it's pretty possible. Not every kid has to live and breathe wrestling. The kids who maybe want to go to college probably do. So you're going to tell that kid who's playing baseball that goes to the pitching coach or the batting coach in the off season, should he stop going? Should that football player stop going to strength and conditioning because that kid across the line is beating his ass every day and he's just a natural athlete? He's not even doing the extra stuff. So now that kid's actually going to an extra expert on the side to try and get better to beat that kid. So already your statement makes 0 sense. Just to expound, is it possible that not everyone wants to live and breathe wrestling? Yes, it is, and numbers show it. Also a lie. I have numbers here that tell me that thanks to a 9.6% increase in boys' participation and another staggering season of growth on the girls' side, the sport reached a 45-year high for high school participants during the 2022-2023 school year, according to the NFSHSA. Am I missing something somewhere? So I'm pretty sure the numbers don't lie. You, Club Wrestling, are not doing high school wrestling any favors. You have created a very uneven playing field and sadly think you're doing the school sport a favor. You're not. It's asinine to have kids that wrestle year-round competing, and he has competing in quotation marks, against kids who don't. You think this is fair? Okay. Right there is the poison and cancer of the statement. Sports are not fair. Sports aren't fair. There's a reason why there's a winner and a loser. The winner's better, the loser's not. We had winning and losing before all this. Are the kids getting better at an exponential rate? Yes, they are. Wholeheartedly. Fair. Let's talk about fair. So when I started a tournament, it's called Sawdust Nationals. I called it Sawdust Nationals. I specifically did not want awards for anything below third place. Specifically. When I was a kid, if you got first or second, you got a medal. Some tournaments, you only got a medal for first place. The rest were ribbons. You got that for showing up, right? Now kids get trophies, medals, All-American awards, sometimes just for showing up. So if you want to talk about fairness, stop putting the kid down who's putting the extra work in to get better so he can be on top of the podium. If that other kid doesn't want to do that, that's fine. Maybe your kid's one that's losing a lot. Maybe you're the one who isn't affording him the opportunities to get better. I have no idea. I don't know you. I don't know who the Scott Melsna guy is. But I'll tell you what, sports have changed. Sports have changed a lot. We talk about it a lot on the show. Sports have changed in the aspect of kids want to get better. Kids want to be better at a sport. It's fun to them to be good. It's fun to be better. Now, granted, can every parent afford to have their kid going to a club? No. But there are clubs who have drop-in fees like $25, $20. And not every kid is practicing all summer long, but a lot of them are. I think you'll be surprised in how many numbers of the kids that are actually going to clubs, whether it's baseball, football, wrestling, tennis, track, to get better. And not every one of them goes every day of the week. Some of them go a couple times in the summer, 4 or 5 times in the summer. They're not wrestling freestyle Greco, or they're not on travel ball, but they're going to a training coach or something to get a little bit better. Sorry about the camera there. Parents with the means to provide it, family and parents with the means to provide. I think parents who understand the grander scope of what is going on with sports, and I really hope this guy is not a parent of an athlete, because I feel bad for that athlete, because he's probably looking for awards everywhere he goes just because his kid signed up. So we're kind of still touching on the fair thing. Maybe not every kid wants to wrestle year round, he says. Maybe not every family has the means. Maybe kids want to be kids. Kids can be kids. You know what other kids are doing also? They're sitting and playing video games. How is that the guy's fault that wants to get better? Why is that his fault? Why are you blaming a club coach because he opened a club because there are kids who want to get better? And those club coaches are trying to make things extremely affordable for families. Not just on a pandering basis. They want the kids to get in. They want all kids to get in to get better. Now, I've heard a lot of football players say that they got better just from going to wrestling practices. A lot of football players are former wrestlers, because what they do, because other kids in football are so good, they stop wrestling and then they play football all year. Kind of weird concept, isn't it? It's kind of weird how it's other sports that are doing it too. I notice a lot more people at the sport. I notice a lot more people at duels. I notice a lot more fans of the sport. They're not just paying attention at the duels, but they're paying attention on social media. They're paying attention, watching videos. They're watching, duels that are going on for colleges. These club coaches, and I spoke with via messenger with someone that is very ingrained in the sport. The two kids are especially. They lost someone very close to them, but those guys have developed relationships with these coaches from not just clubs here, but outside clubs that knew of the family member. They see those kids go and wrestle across the country, and they're there cheering for them. And they don't even know these kids. They know that the family member that they knew, but they don't even know these wrestling coaches that are from clubs care very much about the sport, and they care very much about the growth of the sport, and they pay attention to the growth. They see where kids are either going or not going. They notice if a kid stopped coming out for wrestling. They pay attention to when these kids are struggling and give them a hand. To say that club wrestling is destroying or wrecking the sport or bringing the sport down is completely insane. So that's where I'm going to touch on the last part of this. And this is going to get pretty mean on the last part here. When you say things like this and have nothing to stand behind other than some shit you made up, this is the part where I start getting upset. My son's one of them. He wrestles all year. Okay. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There's more to life than wrestling. You have a few kids wrestling 24/7, 365, beat up on average kids. A few kids wrestling all year? A few. Come on. Clearly you are not paying attention. I would almost gather to say that most kids that are on a wrestling team now that aren't going to club practices, you can tell who they are, but there's not many. There aren't a lot because a lot of the high school coaches are jumping on board and saying, hey, get over to Aspirin, get over to Crass, get over to Law, get to Fox Valley Elite. So I don't know where this guy's coming up with this from. You have a few kids wrestling 24/7, 365, beat up on average kids. Beat up on average kids is probably the least attractive statement about this whole thing. These kids are going out. Number one, a lot of times when a kid's way better than another kid, they do tend to actually take it easier on them. So if you're just talking about the score, you clearly don't have a clue on what you're talking about with the whole demographic of sport in general. Beat up on average kids. Does that make you better than them? Yes. Yes, it does. It does make you better than them because you put the time in to practice and get better. That kid took the time in to maybe practice a different sport. Maybe he sits around playing video games. That's not a club coach's problem. They made a kid better. That's a good thing. They probably developed a great relationship with that kid and his family. I know for sure Scanlon does. I know Josh Wagner at AWA has built some great relationships with a ton of the kids from that room. Same thing with Max. Same thing with Ben, Jordan Crass. Even Ryan Taylor, RT Elite. These guys all bring something to the table, and it's not bringing the sport down. You have lost kids, lost fans, and lost interest in general. So that statement in its own tells me right away. If this guy has been involved in wrestling, ingrained in wrestling, great. But God, I hope he doesn't have kids in wrestling. If they do, I feel really bad for those kids because his outlook on just sports in general and high-level athletics, 9 chances out of 10 when people come to a varsity anything, they're looking to see competitive and they're looking to see high energy, right? A lot of high school coaches can bring that. A lot of them can. But I'll tell you this much. A lot of those kids, especially the bigger kids, they're going to strength and conditioning coaches. Kids that are serious about it want to go to college and do this sport. They're going to strength and conditioning coaches. They're going to club coaches. They're going to all kinds of things, to make them better. Hell, sports psychologists, right? So I've given this about 15 minutes. That's about the amount of time I wanted to spend on it. But I wanted to be able to point out just how ridiculous the statement that this person put out is. It is not, he's not alone. He's not alone in the statement. He's not. There are a lot of people who have said this, that, and again, we've wrestled all across the country. I've been up when Liam was a kid. We went up to the UP for a tournament. Probably didn't belong up there. He was really good at that point. And again, the demographic up there, just wrestling just isn't the gig. It's football. It's everything else. They had the coaches meeting beforehand. And in the coaches meeting, it was a lot of the school coaches that were in there, because they're from the grade school or whatever it is. They're from the school club, I guess you would call it. In that meeting, it was the yearly meeting. They decided to do it at this tournament. So they're having their coaches meeting there. And in that meeting, I heard nothing but bickering about the clubs that were up there, in which I think there were only a couple. It was upper level, and I think one other one. Complaining about how kids weren't going to their practices and things like that. Probably because they weren't getting better at your practice. I have said this before, guys. There are levels to this shit, right? There are a lot of clubs in the state that are great for kids to kind of get their feet wet at high level competition in wrestling, right? Clubs that'll get kids ready for that stuff. Aviators is one of them. Then they get to a certain point where that level jumps, right? Where it's either high school kids or these middle school kids are getting really good one-on-one training with a coach, whatever it is. Those kids, in turn, again, and I brought this up, those kids then go to the wrestling room in high school or middle school, and they make their teammates better, right? A lot of coaches will pay attention to what their school kids are doing in the off season, and they welcome those kids to come in, and they're like, hey, can you show me what you learned here? Perfect. There are coaches with no shame in their game, and they appreciate what is going on around them in the state. Again, I hope this guy, I hope he does. If someone said he refs, if he refs, he needs to go. He needs to go. That is a cancer that we do not need in this sport. And I'll tell you right now, that opinion that he has, again, he's not alone. We need to either get these people who think that way on board or get them off board. It is not good for any sport. He is basically griping about how probably his team or his kid on a team or whatever doesn't get a chance to win because they don't put the extra work in. That's life. He talks about fair. What is fair? Oh, okay, yep. That sport's done for the winter. You can't do it anymore because that's what's fair. That's asinine. His opinion is asinine. On this specific thing, his opinion is asinine. I hope people read that, and a lot of the comments that we saw, the people that read it know it's pretty ridiculous. There may have been some that were just like, oh, he's kind of right here. There is not one portion of that statement that is accurate or correct. Not one portion. No, I lied. I take that back. Other than saying that not every kid wants to live, breathe, and die with wrestling. They don't. Not every kid does, which they're correct. I think the elephant in the room, though, is just the club in general. These coaches love these kids as much as the high school coaches do. These coaches put a lot of time and energy. These club coaches put a lot of time and energy into these kids. And these coaches are well connected across the country. So, a lot of times an athlete goes somewhere in a different state. They know someone there and they're like, hey, I got an athlete coming there. Can they train with you? So there's a lot that goes into these clubs, and they're not just there to make money. You may have some clubs that are like, we're here to grow the sport. But they're not there to grow the sport. They're there to grow their brand, which grows the sport hand in hand, whichever way it is. I think there's a lot to be said for all clubs that go and open up in the state. Like I said, I've named a couple of them: RT Elite, Crash Train, Law, Fox Valley Elite. All these guys are putting their time and energy into these kids because they have parents reaching out to them saying, I want my kid to get better. My kid wants to get better. So I think he's extremely alone in that statement, I hope. at least in this state, where if you're turned off by it, don't do it. Don't do the sport. If it's that hard and you don't have the time and energy to stick into it, don't do it. You're wasting your time and you're wasting the other people's time along with coaches. But to say that club wrestling is wrecking the sport in the state, that was a reckless statement. Extremely reckless. I hope this person has people around them to make them understand how wrong that they were about the statement that they made. Social media is a fun place. Social media can be a dangerous place as well. And that guy proved a point. And I think politics proves a point when it comes to ridiculousness. But we try to keep that off here. So I'm open to opinions. If someone thinks I'm wrong or I pointed something out incorrectly, let me know. But again, I can't agree with any of this. It's just I don't understand where. I don't know if this person is someone that is like never won anything or never felt success or never put work in to gain success. It sounds like this guy's had a lot of stuff just handed to him. So maybe he hasn't. Again, I don't know the guy, and I'm not trying to attack him personally, but I can tell you right now, based off of his opinion, he doesn't sound too smart. So that's my opinion on that, folks. I can't believe that we have someone, and they mentioned that this guy might be a ref. He's ingrained in wrestling, possibly. God, I hope not. Because if he is, gotta go. We don't need that shit in the sport. So I bid you guys adieu. Appreciate your time. Hopefully you appreciate the opinion. Yeah, that's where we gotta leave this one, folks. But pay attention. We got some new episodes coming out. Talk to you guys soon.